Hello, my friends. This is Paul Drockton with the Utah Voice, and you can see this video at utahvoice.net, as well as other breaking news stories and other information that you will definitely find useful. That's utahvoice.net. Okay, so we're going to talk about this extremely relevant leak from WikiLeaks, and this, of course, is from the Public Library of U.S. Diplomacy. And understand that WikiLeaks has never been challenged on whether or not they have accurate information. Never. So we're going to go ahead and assume that the record continues. Now, if you take a look at what this is, right? This is from Venezuela, Caracas, and to all the other countries, right? And basically, it was classified by Robert Downs, political counselor, for reason 1.4, which we'll talk about. Okay, summarize. The Venezuelan-owned Smartmatic Corporation is a riddle both in ownership and operation, complicated by the fact that its machines have overseen several landslide and contested victories by President Hugo Chavez and his supporters. The electronic voting company went from a small technology startup to a major market player in just a few years, catapulted by its participation in the August 2004 recall referendum. Smartmatic is claimed to be of U.S. origin, but its true owners, probably elite Venezuelans of several political strains, remained hidden behind a web of holding companies in the Netherlands and Barbados. Now, if you go to my site, you can read President Trump's executive order about foreign interference in our elections. That's what this is. The Smartmatic machines used in Venezuela are widely suspected of, though never proven conclusively to be susceptible to fraud. The company is thought to be backing out of Venezuelan electoral events, focusing now on other parts of the world, including the United States, via its subsidiary Sequoia. So who owns Smartmatic? Smartmatic was founded in the late 90s by three Venezuelans, Antonio Mujica, Alberto Anzola, and Roger Piñate. According to Mujica's conversations with Polofs in recent years, the three had developed a network capable of handling thousands of simultaneous inputs. An early application was ATMs in Mexico, but the U.S. presidential election in 2000 led the group to consider electronic voting platforms. The company formed the SBC consortium with Venezuelan telecom provider CANTV, which at the time was 28% owned by Verizon, and a software company called Vista. Magica said Smartmatic held 51% of the consortium. CANTV had 47% and Vista 2%. The latter, also owned by Smartmatic owners, was announced in June 2004 by the press for having received a $200,000 equity investment from a Bolivian Republic of Venezuela joint venture fund called FONCREI. A Chavez campaign advisor was placed on the board as well. Vista reimbursed what it called a loan when it was made public and shed the Chavista board member. Now, what are we hearing from the media? Well, they're telling us, well, look, there's no link between Venezuela and Dominion and Smartmatic. There's no link at all. Well, here you can see it's been clearly documented. Mujica has told Polofs on several occasions that Anzola, Piñate, and he are the owners of Smartmatic, though they have a list of about 30 investors who remain anonymous. Jose Antonio Herrera, Antonio's father-in-law and first cousin, the Venezuelan ambassador to the United States, Bernardo Alvarez, told Polofs in 2004 the silent partners were mainly upper-class Venezuelans, some of whom were staunch Chavez opponents. There were rumors, however, that Smartmatic's early profits came from Venezuela's defense contracts supplied by then Defense Minister Jose Vicente Rangel, whom Chavez later promoted to vice president. Perhaps coincidentally, the vice president's daughter, Gisela Rangel Avalos, was the head of the local corporate registry when Smartmatic was registered, which controlled or contributed to allegations of the vice president's involvement. These unconfirmed rumors also suggest that one-time Chavez political mentor, Luis Michelena, was also a shareholder in the company. So in other words, who knows who the real owners were, but the beneficiaries, of course, was Chavez and a hotly contested recall election, right? Musica first approached the embassy in 2004 when the company was bidding at the National Electoral Council to provide a completely new electronic voting system. Musica pitched Smartmatic as a U.S. company registered in Delaware, with offices in Boca Raton, Florida. In fact, Polofs had several discussions with Musica in the course of facilitating his L1 intercompany transfer visa to work in the United States. Musica said the company's corporate offices were in Boca Raton, but most of the research staff of some 70 employees remained in Caracas, Venezuela. So obviously it was operating out of Venezuela. Now, you need to understand something. Venezuela is a communist country now. It's communist. It's communism. And we all know that China has made massive inroads into South America, Central America, and even here in the United States. And we know that Venezuela is also linked to Cuba and also linked to communists worldwide. So long story short, another failed communist dictatorship. Smartmatic essentially purchased its electoral expertise by hiring veteran election observer Jorge Tirado and his team of consultants. Tirado served as the interface between Smartmatic and CNE for several elections. Now, again, what I'm trying to point out to you here is that these individuals know that they cannot govern without popular support. So they know they're never going to get it because nobody votes for starvation. Nobody votes for giving up what they own. Nobody votes for unemployment. Nobody votes for inflation. Nobody votes for any of these things. And so what do? Well, they go ahead and they create a software where the outcome is pretty much guaranteed. In May of 2006, Musica told Polofs Smartmatic's corporate structure had changed, which had come out in press reports. Musica said that Smartmatic was now two different companies under a Dutch holding company. Remember, President Trump issued an executive order about foreign interference. U.S. setup was essentially the same, with Delaware Registry and the Boca Raton accounting office overseeing U.S. operations. Smartmatic acquired the U.S. voting machine company Sequoia Voting Systems on March 8, 2005. All U.S. election machinery is assembled in New York, he said. Musica noted that while their U.S. operations were important, more than half their sales were outside of Venezuela and the United States. The other Smartmatic company was based in Bridgetown, Barbados, where Musica said the international sales operation was located. Most of the manufacturing for their electoral and other electronic machinery was done in China. Critical, my friends. Look at this. Most of the manufacturing for their electoral and other electronic machinery was done where? In China. So where was this actually manufactured, these voting systems? In communist China. Musica said, with some component work also done in Taiwan. Smartmatic also manufactures some items in Italy through the company Olivetti, which built the original Smartmatic machines for Venezuela. The research and development shop was still located in Caracas, Musica noted. Then he goes on, and he says, of course, the Venezuelan opposition is convinced that the Smartmatic machine robbed them of victory in August 2004 referendum. Since then, there have been at least 8 statistical analyses. Does this sound familiar, my friends? Look what's going on right now with our elections. There have been at least 8 statistical analyses performed on referendum results. Most of the studies cross-check the results with those of exit polls, the signature drives, and previous election results. One study obtained the data log from the CNTV network and supposedly proved that the Smartmatic machines were bi-directional. This is critical. Why? Because what it means is not only can data go in to the machine from the voter, but can also be sent to a remote site and be altered. And in fact showed irregularities in how they reported the results to the CNE central server during the referendum. And note the most suspicious data point in the Smartmatic system was that the machines contacted the server before printing the results. Look at that. These, again, are the same complaints we're getting in this presidential election here in the United States. That machines contacted the server before printing the results. They're basically verifying with someone who isn't actually on site, someone who's remote, whether or not they have the right numbers. Look at that. Providing the opportunity at least to change the results and defeat the rudimentary checks set up by international observation missions. Wow. So in other words, the numbers go into the system where they're transmitted to a third party off-site who checks to make sure it's the numbers they want, and if not, they change the numbers and send them back. This, my friends, is how it works. This is communism in action. This is fraud. This is how these individuals are taking over all these other countries, through fraud, and how they're trying to take over these United States. Since August 2004, the CNE has not repeated this practice. These somewhat conspiratorial reports perhaps serve to breathe life into a defeated opposition, but have never proved conclusively the fraud. Well, we can prove it here, statistically, and also with the affidavits. The Smartmatic machine suffered a major blow, however, when in a test prior to the December 2005 National Assembly elections, an opposition technique was able to defeat the machine's allegedly random storage protocols and therefore the secrecy of the vote. The technician took advantage of the fact that the computerized machines used a Windows operating system. We're talking about basically a laptop or a desktop. A simple program downloaded from the internet accessed underlying Windows files created in order as the machine processed Smartmatic's randomized software. So, long story short, right? During a real election, the opposition parties boycotted, abstention rates soared to at least 75%, and confidence in the CNE among opposition voters plummeted. The disastrous results left Chavez with 100% control of the National Assembly, which is an albatross around the neck of a leader trying to appear democratic. Now, if Smartmatic can escape the fraud allegation, there's still a corruption question. Well before Smartmatic, Venezuelan law had dictated that voting ought to be automated to limit fraud. Didn't we hear that here in the United States? The U.S. company SNS and Spanish firm Indra had already sold systems to the electoral body. When the new pro-Chavez CNE was named in September 2003, however, it immediately set out to replace all existing systems. Declaring the bid process to be an emergency, though there was yet no referendum scheduled, the CNE bypassed normal procedures and initiated a closed bid process. In other words, Chavez and his government, picked the voting machines. Smartmatic won the contract, which totaled at least $128 million, including the delivery of 20,000 touchscreen voting machines, which basically were re-engineered lottery machines yet to be built. There were immediate questions about how a virtually unknown company with no electoral experience could have landed such a large contract. Mujica asserted the poll-off that everything was above board, though he conceded the company may have opened itself up to criticism by hiring a former Interior Vice Minister named Morris Loyal to lobby the government. There were additional allegations of impropriety in October 2005, when the press reported that Smartmatic had paid the bill of CNE President Jorge Rodriguez at an exclusive Boca Raton resort. The company claimed Rodriguez had reimbursed him for the stay during which Rodriguez reportedly examined an unspecified electoral system Smartmatic was developing. There were subsequent unconfirmed rumors that Rodriguez was lobbying for Smartmatic in other countries. So, in December 2005, Mujica told Embus the company was considering terminating its business with CNE. Allegations of fraud were hurting the company's image. Right? No, prior to that meeting, Mujica had agreed to loan a voting machine to the embassy for examination. When Embos arrived at the office, however, Mujica said he had changed his mind and suggested that we contact Smartmatic's Boca Raton office to secure a test machine. So they knew, right? Mujica noted that CNE had purchased the software necessary to operate the machines without his company, part of the CNE's stated goal of achieving technological independence. Though he noted that CNE regularly holds out until the last minute before hiring them to administer an election, he listed several countries in Latin America where they had either started supplying machines or pushing for sales. This isn't about profit, my friends. This is about takeover. This is about taking over South America. Now understand, according to the Monroe Doctrine, the United States basically stated we will not permit any other country, foreign country, to interfere in this hemisphere, period. In December, Mujica told poll counts the company is trying to break into Europe and Asia. Again, more communist takeovers. He mentioned having sales agents in Thailand, Malaysia, and the Philippines. They had yet to secure any sales, of course, via Sequoia. Smartmatic was already working in a dozen U.S. states at that time. And then here's some additional comments. Smartmatic is a riddle. The company came out of nowhere to snatch a multi-million-dollar contract in an electoral process that ultimately reaffirmed Chavez's mandate, but all but destroyed its political opposition. And this is what he says. Smartmatic is that the company is de facto Venezuelan and operated by Venezuelans. The identity of Smartmatic's true owners remain a mystery. Our best guess is that there are probably several well-known Venezuelan businessmen backing the company who prefer anonymity, either because of their political affiliation or perhaps they manage the interests of senior Venezuelan government officials, or maybe because we're talking about Chinese communist money, which, in my opinion, is more likely. Look, my friends, let me explain this to you. Communism is not a grassroots. It's not a grassroots movement. It's a fraud perpetrated on the 99% of the population by the less than 1%. You need to understand this. You need to understand that this all began with central banking. Karl Marx stated, we can never achieve our objectives without central banks consolidating the capital, right, required for the revolution. Karl Marx knew where his bread was being buttered. It was from the central banks. And it was the central banks that basically have been advocating for communism ever since. It was the central banks that sold out Taiwan and basically put resources into Mao Zedong, who was actually losing the war against Chiang Kai-shek. It was the central banks that sent Lenin and Trotsky and Stalin into Russia with millions and millions of dollars worth of gold to bribe officials. Look, this is nothing more than a hostile takeover of this world by those individuals that want to destroy it. And what better way to do that than through software that's corrupt and that can be where voting results can be changed by a third party before they're officially announced or recognized. Now, thankfully, here in the United States, Donald Trump is doing everything he can to not just expose this fraud, but to force this mess that we call an election into the Electoral College and into the House of Representatives. And if that were to occur, which I would say right now there's an extremely high probability that the U.S. Supreme Court is going to side with the fraud allegations, then it means simply this, that each state gets one vote for president. And if you look at the map, the majority of states are red, and Donald Trump will be declared the president of the United States. And you can bet on that. This is Paul Drockton. Again, go to my website. Make sure you donate, my friends. Look, this stuff's a lot of work, and I want to make sure that I can get it out to as many people as possible, and that's why I'm asking you to donate. So please, go to the site and donate. Go to utahvoice.net, and I will promise you I will continue to bring you the best journalism you can find anywhere. God bless. Have a great day.